back, and here I am. I don't know what was happening before, and also the video quality doesn't look great. It's like it reset all the camera settings for some reason. So let me tweak it a little bit. The plan for today, while I'm tweaking, let me say a few things, is to usually just adjust automatically. Man, there's a lot of gesture there. Sorry. The plan today is to try and do some p5.js and to try to recreate some screensavers. What does this do? Yeah, usually it just automatically adjusts. So I'm not sure why. It looks like a pretty low resolution image, and it's not doing a great job of chroma keying. But I guess that doesn't matter. I mean, you can see me, I can express myself, and hopefully it looks okay. Hopefully it sounds okay. No one's watching, so, or that, maybe there is. Let me just refresh that. I think I had one viewer a minute ago, but yeah, okay, one viewer. Good morning. So today my goal is to try to recreate some screensavers using p5.js. That's your project for DGST 301. I don't know what's going on with my video quality. It's not like, again, it doesn't matter too much, but it's like bugging me that I look weird. I feel powdery, like I'm covered in a fine powder or something. I need to adjust this color. Well, anyway, I'm going to stop looking at this so I can actually see what I'm doing and kind of talk through it, and hopefully I don't look too weird. If I do, let me know, or if it sounds weird, or if like my audio is out of sync, let me know. Let me just check let me make sure I'm on the right microphone. I'm not. This is the microphone I intend to use, and hopefully that sounds better. I didn't realize yesterday I was streaming with the webcam microphone again, and I bought this microphone and I set it up to sound better, and hopefully it does now sound better. So let me know if it's out of sync or anything, but hopefully that's not too important. Okay, here we go. So screensavers. Students in 301A, your job is to make a screensaver, and yesterday I went through some examples on After Dark, which is the software from the 90s, and specifically I was looking at After Dark 4.0 for Windows 98, and I found a bunch of screensavers. And your challenge is to try to create your own screensaver. You can recreate a classic, or you can come up with your own idea, and the idea is to use p5.js to do that. And so I thought I'd today try to do a couple of examples and see what I can do. What you're looking at here, this is an example I made a while ago, and I didn't know the name of the screensaver, but I remembered it, and I recreated it in p5.js. And then I actually just found it in After Dark this morning. It's called String Theory, and it looks a little different than how I remembered, but I still kind of like what I created here. So that's why I wanted to put this up here to begin with. Going through the code of it, I don't know, like I wrote this a while ago, so it's sort of hard to remember how I did it, but one of the things, nope, I would like that to be bigger, there we go. One of the things I'm doing here that's kind of a trick is I'm drawing a transparent background, so that's what creates that trailing effect. So you see it coming behind. I've also introduced a like a little tick here so that it's not drawing every frame, so that you don't see a continuous structure. What I wanted to see is like distinct lines, but they fade out, and so as they move around, you see them start to overlap and do other things. But if you were just drawing a line every frame, it would just look like a blur as it moved across there, and I wanted to introduce that little pausing, and so the ticking is what I created to do that. And otherwise, though, what's happening is, I mean, the essential logic of it is 2 points bouncing around the screen, and they just always, every 5 frame refreshes, they draw a line between themselves based on whatever their current color is. So my children are, okay, hang on. I have to go tell people to stop doing something. Hey guys, put the rocks down, put the dust down. I know. Daniel, go do something else. I know Daniel has messed this up, and this is not good. But you can't throw rocks at him. I don't know if that was your plan, but you can't throw rocks. I know. It'll brush off. They'll be okay. But you guys need to leave each other alone. Okay. All right. I'm back. There will continue to be some drama, I think. My son just threw a big pile of dirt at his sister and her friend. And so they were sitting out in the backyard painting rocks, and he just ran up and threw a big pile of dirt at them. And they're understandably upset. So anyway, hopefully they'll figure that out. I may have to go do some other things, but anyway, this is what was happening is it's drawing the lines between those two dots as they bounce around. And remember, yesterday I did the bouncing ball example, so it's the same logic of bouncing around, but instead of just bouncing one ball, it's two invisible balls, but they draw a line between themselves as they bounce around. That's the basic logic that I have here. Okay, yeah, I still feel like my video is not looking good, but that's, I'm gonna move on. So today I have an idea to try to do a couple of different, two specific ones. I'm gonna try to tackle the classic toaster one, but first I want to do something that I think should be a lot simpler, and I found it here. Let me see. I gotta get OBS back so I can pull up my Windows 98 emulator. This is, let's see, I'm not showing it yet. So this is the string theory screensaver running in Windows 98 after dark. It's moving super fast, but that's the problem with emulation. So this is a VirtualBox running Windows 98, and it's picking up the way that this was programmed originally. It picks up the speed of these lines from the processor that's running it, and this is a much faster processor than it was intended for. I assume it's possible to emulate that or to slow down the perceived processor speed using in the VirtualBox settings, but I haven't looked into that yet. Just know that this is not the normal speed that it would have gone at. It would have gone at a speed more like what my version of it does. And you can kind of see them side by side here, actually. My version is, clearly much slower. And that's what it was. That's what it was like. That's what I remember it being like. So, but it still looks pretty cool, and I think I'm pretty happy with my, the relative faithfulness of what I accomplished there. So let me take a look at a few more here. Let me close that one. And the other one I'm going to try to do is shapes. Well, the first one I'm going to do. This one is pretty simple. It again did not move this fast originally. Like this is crazy fast. It was much slower than this. But what you can see happening is, hopefully, is it's drawing rectangles and circles and ellipses just randomly, right? Just picking a random spot and a random color and then drawing that shape in that place. And that's something that we should definitely be able to do in p5.js. So I'm going to close that because that's super chaotic to look at, and switch back to p5.js and see what we can do to get that going. So that's our goal. Keep that in mind, and we'll see what we can get to. I was hoping to try to wrap this up around 11:30 because I have a virtual conference to go to, but we'll see. I can be late to that, I think, if I need to. Okay, so let's take a look at p5.js. So within p5.js, by the way, students, I shared a link in a page in Canvas to the specific playlist I recommend for p5.js. That's by Dan Schiffman, and that's a good place to start. I might add a little bit to that page, but I might, really just Dan Schiffman's way of teaching that is much better than what I can do. Hold on a second. All right, so, whoa.
Whoa, but Robert just flew into the window.
Yeah, I saw that.
Again?
Yeah, it bounced off.
Is that news from over here?
I don't, probably not, but it's okay. I think it bounced off and flew away, so it's okay.
There you go.
All right, great. Okay, so let's try to make a new sketch here. Let's go to File and then New, and we'll make a brand new one.
Okay.
And let's say, okay, I don't mind moving that. So can you please tell them to go away? And Daniel needs to go inside and
Look, Dad is streaming a video right now.
All right, so, oh man, so much chaos here. So this is my canvas that I'm trying to get started here, and because we're emulating screensavers, I recommend an 800 by 600 canvas width. And so I'm going to go ahead and set up my canvas that way with this first create canvas function. That's a typical screen resolution for Windows 98, which is what I'm running in. Obviously, screens are much higher resolution now, but we're kind of revisiting the past. So we'll go ahead and do that and see what that looks like. I'm going to maybe zoom out a little bit so you can see the whole thing, but I don't really need to see the whole emulated screen in view as I'm coding. That's the shape of it, right? So I'm going to zoom back in so you can see the code a little bit better. Now, this is a screensaver, and if you look at it in the emulator, one of the options is you can clear the screen first. So let's clear the screen first by drawing the background, and this is a screensaver, so we're going to draw the background black. I'm going to go ahead and do 3 zeros here, 0, 0, 0, to express the color. This is in RGB color mode, and this is a pretty intuitive way to think of color, I think. Although as I develop this example, I might want to switch to HSV mode. That's what I did for the line drawing thing, but probably not. The HSV mode is a little bit more convenient if you're trying to gradually change hue. Like you want to just change it a little bit at a time, but still say like blue, but kind of gradually become green step by step. It's a little bit easier to do the math there for the hue saturation thing, because you just increment the hue number. But for RGB, you'd have to calculate it. In any case, we now have a black screen, and so let's see if we can draw some shapes on it. So the shape tools are pretty common sense, right? So let's just try to draw one at a time and then kind of see what happens. So so in p5.js and JavaScript, you write a comment with 2 forward slashes. So I'm going to write a comment here just to explain to myself what I'm doing. Let's draw we'll say ellipse, right? An ellipse is a circle, or it could be an oval, but it's a generic term for either, and so we'll go ahead and do that. So the reference page in p5.js has a ton of stuff in it, and it's very, I think, well explained. So let's take a look at ellipse. For the ellipse function, this is going to draw an ellipse, and this is an example of an ellipse being drawn with these properties: 56, 46, which is going to be the location, and then 55, 55, which is going to be basically the height and the width. Right? It's the same, so in this case it's a circle, but if we change one of those, it'll become an oval. So let's try it. Let me just copy this code into my sketch. And there's a circle at the top left. This is what we did yesterday. If I change one of these values now, let's say 15, then that will become, a much narrower oval, obviously. And if I change one of these values, it should move to a different position. So let's try 86. And yeah, move down a little bit, right? These are numbers relative to that canvas, which is 800 by 600, right? So it's still just a little bit of that canvas, but not too bad. Okay, so let's try changing a couple things actually about this, and this should get us. I mean, if I do it this way, actually, let me draw the rectangle first, and then we'll build it that way. So the rectangle function, like similarly, you want to draw a rectangle. The name of the function to draw a rectangle is conveniently just it's rect. I was going to say rectangle, but it's actually rect to abbreviate that. But it's still pretty, I think, intuitive, right? You can draw rounded corners, which is kind of neat, but we'll just do a basic white rectangle with a black border. Draw a rectangle. So again, I'm just copying and pasting the code from the example, and this, because the 55 and the 55 are the same value, is going to make the square. So it's the width and the height again, and you can see that they overlap each other. So the rectangle was drawn after the ellipse, so it comes on top. So it kind of starts in the background and kind of moves forward towards us as it draws these. Okay, hopefully pretty intuitive. Again, we can move the position there, and the formula for these, the rectangle wants your x position, your y position on the coordinate plane, your width, and your height. Right? So sometimes I just kind of write myself little notes like this to help remember what this is, and it's actually the same for the ellipse. So it's x, y, width, height. Okay, now if you remember, one of the things about that screensaver is that the shapes we saw were changing color. So we need to figure out how to change the color for these shapes. So let's see what we can learn about that. So this one does take a bit to figure out, and this is probably a good example. This is the color. The specific name of the thing we want to change the color of here is the fill. And let me see. Let me just check this screensaver quickly just to remember. Yeah, there's no border on the screensaver that I'm trying to emulate. So those are just going to be shapes without a border. So we need to essentially blank, or like set the border to 0 or invisible, and then change the color, the filled in shape of the filled in color of that shape. So we're going to change the fill first, and it's using RGB values, so that's hopefully pretty straightforward. All right, so this is going to change the color to yellow. Notice that this is being used to change the color of a rectangle. Now this is something that I think might surprise you a bit, or at least it took me a while to get used to. Watch what happens if I change the fill on line 8. All right, both shapes are yellow. Right? Okay, so I didn't change the fill isn't being attached to a specific shape being drawn. It just is the current fill color for whatever is being drawn. So watch what happens if I move it down here. You may not be able to see this actually. Let's see. Yeah, it happened very, very quickly. But as it drew initially, the ellipse was white, and then the rectangle was yellow, and then they were both yellow. Remember, the draw function is a loop, so even though it looks like one thing, it's actually happening over and over and over again, 10, 20, 30, 40 times a second. And so it actually, the fill color, think of it like a pen. Whenever you say fill yellow, you've dipped the pen in yellow ink, and then everything that gets drawn after that is going to be yellow, have a yellow fill until you say otherwise. So if I wanted to have a different color for the ellipse, I would have to dip that pen in a different color just before drawing the ellipse every time I draw that ellipse. So let's say I want to make let's say like a reddish. Let's see if I can do pink for this ellipse. So we need to come up with an RGB value. This is off the top of my head, so I'll probably need to tweak it a bit. But let's say 255, 180, 180, 180. Let's do 180, 200. Okay. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, you can kind of see it's sort of a yellowish pink. I find it kind of weird the way these two shapes are sitting on top of each other, by the way, so I want to move the rectangle over. Oops, not like that. I keep wanting to hit Shift Enter to run my sketch, but I think you just have to push the button. There might be a shortcut for it. I don't know. Okay, so and then I'm also going to make my ellipse bigger just because it's hard to kind of see that. So let me make that 120 by 80. And yeah, there you go. That's better. So kind of a pink, light pink, I guess, for that shape. Not too bad. And yeah, I mean, I'm drawing, right? Now, this is trying to emulate that screensaver that I saw where it was popping shapes up all over the place in unpredictable ways. So there are some things I need to try to change about this. Two things I need to try to change about this. I need to randomize the color, and I need to randomize the location, and the size, and the shape. And so lots of things I need to randomize. In fact, there's all these numbers that I put in here. Basically, I could have it pick a random number each time it does that, and then see what happens. So let's try changing just one or two of these at a time. I will try to change the. Well, sorry, I'm thinking. Let's try to change. Yeah, we'll change the location first. So randomness is something that, again, going into the reference is how I recommend getting that. So random is, well, I mean, again, to get a random number, pretty intuitively in p5.js, the way you do that is with the word random, with a function named random. And it looks like if we're looking at here, it's going to either take 0, 1, or 2 arguments. So those are the things we get there. So it's either going to be a float between 0 and 1, or it's going to be I guess an integer up to whatever value you give it, although I don't know if that's an integer or not. It may not matter. And then if you give it 2, it's going to give you a number between those two. Okay, great. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm seeing this, if it's going to give me a float or an integer, and that could make a difference. So maybe we should have it print back to us what it's doing. We can have it do that, I believe. Let me see. So I just want to have it print. Or is it just print a random number? Let's just try having it print, just to kind of tell us what it's doing. It should print this number down here in the console below. Let's see if it'll print a number. Let's just say print. Let's just run it like it is, and then see what that does. It should be printing lots of these. Yeah. Okay. So you see it printing now. It's printing floats. It's printing a random number between 0 and 1, which is good to know. Right. So let's stop that. We don't need that for now. And let's try to give it a whole number. Let's say 6. Let's see if it's going to give us. Okay, it is giving us, good, this is good to know. So it's giving us floats still. So it's a number between 0 and 6, but it's not integers, it's decimal numbers, right, floats. And just to confirm, but I think this is the case, let's say we want to have it pick a number between 6 and 100. it's still probably going to be, yeah, it's going to be integers. So that's good to know because some of these things that we're going to give these values to might not like having floats. They might need integers, or it might be easier to understand having integers. But we'll hold that idea and come back to it if we need to. So I'm going to comment that out for now because I don't know if we're going to need to convert these to integers before using them. If we do, we can come back and figure out how to do that. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and name this sketch. I forgot to do that. Let's do shapes screensaver. Okay. So what we're going to try to do now is change the location of these numbers. So the number here is for drawing. Let's just do the ellipse first. So the ellipse is being drawn currently at an x value of 56, y value of 86, but I want to try to randomize that. I know that it can be anywhere between 800 for x and 600 for height. I don't mind if this goes off the screen. So if like the center of it's near the edge and the edge of the ellipse goes off, I don't think that's a problem. But if I wanted to, I could have it calculate that difference. So figure out how wide it is first, and then pick a position that's somewhere less than the total width, and that would be, pretty easy. But I don't care about that at this point. I just want to have it pick a random location for the x value. So instead of saying 56 or whatever it was, I'm going to say use the random function. I'm going to say pick a number anywhere between 0 and width. And I'm doing it this way instead of specifying 800, just in case I change my mind about how wide I want this to be later on. Right, so this is going to change the x position. Let me just see how it looks with this one. Yeah, okay, good. That's what I thought. And so that, as you can see, it's picking a different x position every time it draws the frame. Remember, each of these, the draw loop happens over and over again, so each time it happens, it picks a different x value for that. This is a little fast, but we can find a way to slow it down. But we'll get to that next. All right. So let's do the same thing for height and see if we can make it jump all over the place. So do random 0 height. I really don't like the color of that pink. I'm going to change that too. Let me make this darker, or let me make it like let's do like something like that. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so I like that color better. It's sort of an egg shape, which I'm not super fond of. But we could change the shape, the shape of it later. But let's go ahead with this for now. Obviously, it moves very, very fast and very twitchy. So let's go ahead and slow that down a bit and see if we can make that work a bit more like a screensaver. Remember, we want to make this kind of comfortable. We could do this a couple ways. We could either introduce like a weighting function. So before drawing, maybe it only changes position every 5 frames. That's what I did with the other example where there's the line bouncing around. I think, though, we can actually just globally change the frame rate. And I think that would accomplish the same thing for us and hopefully help. Let me see what we're doing here. So this example sets the frame rate. Okay. Yeah, it just sets the frame rate to a value for 30. And everything else is part of this demonstration. So it looks like you just set the frame rate and then pick a number. So let's try it. We've already got something set up here, so let's just try frame rate, and then let's pick a number. Let's try 10. Oh, what? I'm just not happy about that. So this frame rate is not defined. Do we need to define that first? Oh, it's capital R? That's right. Yeah, JavaScript does care about capitalization, so. Okay, so that's better. Right, it's still a little fast as far as like animation goes, but in terms of being a screensaver, this might be okay, but this is the way we can change it now. So let's make this slower just while we're demonstrating things. Let's go down to 5. Yeah, so now you see it jumping around. I still think that's pretty fast if we were thinking about this as a screensaver. And maybe that's a trade-off, but I'm okay with it as it is. That's good enough, at least for demonstrating what we're going to be doing here. So this is yeah, okay, good. I'm thinking, but this is good. So now let's change a couple other things about this shape every time it gets drawn. Let's say that we want to change the color. So let's do it this way. So we've got the fill setting the color just before it's drawn. So let's make it pick a different set of colors every time it draws this oval. Okay, so let's do, I mean, we could probably build this a bit more kind of generically, but I don't mind just doing this random function just in place wherever I need to do it, because I kind of know what range I want to work with here. So I know for colors it has to be between 0 and 255, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And this is where I'm not sure, it might want me to give it integers, so we'll find out. But I'll just do 0 to 255 for each of these. And random. And just kind of looking at it, it's just now 11:30, so my conference session is starting. So I'm probably going to just finish this example and not do this toasters today. But okay, so now you see this oval is being drawn around the screen, but it's changing color every time it gets drawn. So that's good. Let's do the same thing with the shape. Now we don't want to pick just any numbers here. We want to pick a reasonable set of options for these ovals. So let's do pick a number for the width between, let's say, 50 and 200. And so this will change at different widths. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, kind of blinking around there, but it's all staying the same height. But let's change it so that the height can. Let's make it so that height can change as well, right? So random. Let's do same set of options. So 50 to 200, and I gotta make sure I've got all my parentheses there. Yeah, the little red squiggly was alerting me to the fact that I might be missing one. So now it's plopping different shapes and colors of ovals around the screen every 5 frames. So not too bad. Okay, so we can certainly do the same thing with rectangles. So let's do that too down here. Actually, I have a different idea, because if you notice, well, you know what, we'll do it the long way now. I was going to say we could just have it, since the drawing is actually the same for, like the parameters are the same for the rectangle, we could have it pick parameters and then decide which function to send those parameters to. But I'm trying to keep this kind of simple, so I think we'll just kind of do it the more verbose way. And I'm just copying and pasting in the random 0 to 255 selection here, and likewise, I'm just going to copy and paste this whole thing, right? So this is because it's the same set of things. But we are going to do something different here in a minute. But yeah, so now it's drawing a circle and a rectangle every 5 frames, and looks okay. All right. So I think, in fact, we can make one pretty simple change and then essentially have what the screensaver is doing. And so let me show you my idea. Let me go back to the screensaver again. The screensaver is going to be super fast, so don't worry. We're going to slow it down from there. But take a look at the screensaver again. Right, like it's just sort of is blasting these shapes here, and you can see what I'm doing here is obviously not quite there, but you know, it's putting things out there. But one of the things that you're seeing that's being put out there is it's like always being drawn on top of each other. Like we see lots and lots of rectangles and lots of circles all together. So I have an idea for how we can accomplish that effect with one simple change here, or something like it, and then we'll see how it goes. But so what's happening in this draw function is every frame that gets drawn is first drawn with a black background, and then it draws the shapes on top of that black background. So each new frame draws over the previous frame completely, because it covers the entire thing with this background. If we take this out, it's not going to do that, and instead the background will be transparent as it goes forward. So well, actually we do want it black to begin with, so I think we would probably want to move that into the setup function, but let's try it as it is. Okay, there we go, see? Right, so it just now it's accumulating these shapes going forward. That works pretty well. But like I said, we do want to have it with a black background to begin with, so you can move that to the setup function if you want, and what that does is it just runs that background once and draws a black background to begin with, and then it doesn't draw any more after that. It doesn't do any more backgrounding. It just assumes the background is transparent as the shapes continue to get drawn on the screen. Now, one little tweak here is that in the original screensaver there are no borders on the shapes. There also seems to be a more coherent, I guess, color palette in the original. In this case, I'm just picking a random color, so who knows if they're going to look okay together. I don't know. I could kind of define a set of color options to choose from, and that might do it. but I'm not going to worry about that for now. That's kind of a next level tweak. Instead, I'm just going to try to take off the borders and see what it looks like. Okay, so let's take a look here. So I'm trying to remember if that's, let me take a look at the rect function and see if I can remember how we can change the edge of a shape. I'm trying to remember the name for that, if that's going to be, is it border? So yeah, so notice how nice this is on the reference page for p5.js. If you just type the name of the function, it gives you the options that are going to complete for that. What is the name of it? It's not just line, is it? Because line is going to be like literally drawing a line. Ah, stroke, that's what it was. Yeah, I couldn't remember the word for it. Stroke is the, again, thinking of it like a pen, like what is the pen going to draw in? And that's what we said here, so good. Okay, so let's learn about stroke and see what our options are. The leaf stroke is mainly expecting to, yeah, the word stroke is going to set the color, right? Because down here in this example, this is setting it to yellow. This is setting it to blue using HSB. Stroke weight is going to set how heavy of a line it is or how thick it is. And I bet if we set that to 0, it will disappear. So let's try that back in my sketch. And I could just do that globally, I guess. So I don't have to redeclare it every time. And nope, okay, that was with the 4 because I just copied and pasted. That I kind of like the way that looks actually, but let me just make that 0 globally in the setup, and now we should end up with something that looks kind of like the original screensaver. Yeah, I mean, again, the color palette is not amazing, but it's doing the basics of what the original screensaver did just by drawing random shapes around. Now, I mean, if it's drawing a circle and a square at the same time every 5 frames, that's okay with me, but we could certainly make it choose one or the other. I mean, let's actually do that, because we can do a conditional with that, and that would be a good example, a good thing to demonstrate. All right, so let's just say I'm going to move these things. I'm going to reorganize just a little bit. So I'm going to move my fill pick here, and actually, I could just. Okay, so I'm going to refactor a little bit, right? So I'm going to go ahead and pick every time this loop runs, it's going to pick a color first. Right, so we don't have to pick the color twice. And then we're going to make a decision. We're going to flip a coin and 50 chance of drawing a rectangle, 50 chance of drawing an ellipse instead. So let's do a conditional, and that's with the word if. I'm going to set a condition here, and if it's true, then we'll go ahead and draw a circle. If not, we're going to draw a ellipse. So, I mean, rectangle. Notice I have curly brackets to set up these differences. So the if is going to, this is where I'll set the condition. This is where I will draw an ellipse. And this is where I will draw a rectangle. So let's get our drawing functions in here into this structure. I can go ahead and get my code comment there as well. And I don't need this other fill statement because I've already picked the fill before I decide what to draw. And I'll put that up here. And I don't need that anymore, so go ahead and delete that. And yeah, okay, so this is a little messy, but almost done. All we need to do is figure out a condition that's going to be, we don't need to know ahead of time, but that is going to be true half the time and false half the time. And random gives us a nice way to do this. Remember, random is going to give us a function between, it's going to give us a number between 0 and 1. Where it is between 0 and 1 is random, so 50% of the time it's going to be more than 0.5, and 50% of the time it's going to be less than 0.5, right? I guess about, right? It's not going to be precise because it's random, that's the whole idea. So what I want to say is random greater than 0.5? Remember, just random by itself is just going to give us that float between 0 and 1. Half the time it should be greater than 0.5. So let's see. Now I'm going to actually slow this way down so we can watch this happen. I'm going to go down to 2 frames a second, and then hopefully we'll be able to see that choice a little bit more clearly as it runs. So just to kind of verify that it's only drawing one at a time, and I'm going to zoom out so you can see the whole canvas. Yeah, so you can see now it's drawing one shape at a time. Interestingly, kind of consistent color scheme this time around, but that's totally random. Lots of greens and oranges, which is, I mean, not great. Greens, orange, and browns. Oh, you know why? I just noticed something interesting. The reason I'm getting this consistent color palette is that I have made a typo in my fill over here. I'll show you what that is in a second. But this is the screensaver. Okay, so let me show you the error I made. So I've basically made it so it's almost never going to pick a visible blue color. Instead of giving it 0,255, I accidentally typed a period. So this actually ran as valid JavaScript, but what that period means there is that instead of giving it the range 0 to 255, I gave it the decimal value 0.255, which random was happy to work with. It just means it's going to be always choosing very, very low values for B whenever it draws those colors. So I think we should get a pretty noticeable difference if I fix that and make that a comma, and I'll increase the frame rate back to 10 so we can see that hopefully happening. Let's see. Yeah, much nicer. Okay, that maybe explains the unease I was feeling about the color palette before. I like this color palette a lot better already. So I'm feeling pretty good. I think I've got a pretty faithful representation of the shapes, colors and shapes screensaver from After Dark 4.0. I mean, I've been watching that screensaver run for a little bit, and I feel like it's still more, the color palette is still a bit more pastel oriented than what I've got here, but it's kind of hard to say because it goes so fast on the original that I can't really see it. And that was it. So I was hoping to get started on the toasters, the flying toasters today. I think I'll just do that tomorrow because I need to go to a conference. But it will involve some different structure. So the main thing is that we will need to be, of course, importing the graphic of the animated GIF of the toaster flying. Like that's not something I'm going to try to do on my own. I found that just a basic GIF of the toaster with the flapping wings. So I'm going to be importing that and then animating it across the screen. And to do that, it will take a little bit more structure in our code. We'll have to basically keep track of, we can spawn multiple toasters, but we will have to write some code that keeps track of them. And so it makes sure that so we can make sure to always put toasters on the screen. In other words, once a toaster leaves the screen, we want to be able to send it back to the beginning and go across the screen again. So we need to do some things to keep track of those. And that's going to take a little bit of time to explain and demonstrate. So I'm going to wrap it up here. Thanks for watching, whoever that is, and thanks for, I got a new subscriber even. So thanks for subscribing. And yeah, hopefully this is interesting. I'll be back tomorrow at 11 with another demo of how to make a screensaver in p5.js. And I don't know what's up with I feel like my video is like weirdly low resolution. Like I look pixely, which is, not the worst thing, but I don't know why. All right. Well, whoever you are, thanks for watching. Hope you have a good day.